what if you finished marking a topic, but later on you want to go back and add some extra verses? And how do you know where your last verse was when you finished that topic? And what if you want them in a certain order and you don't want to mess up the order that you've already created? That's what we're going to be talking about in this video. If you're new here, my name is Kathy, and this channel is about all things that have to do with Bible marking. If you're new to Bible marking in general, you might check out the video I've already done called Bible Marking 101, which explains what Bible marking is and how it works. So today we're talking about when you finished marking up a topic with all of your verses, but maybe sometime later you discover another verse that would be great to fit in that topic. That's the beauty of Bible study, that you're reading the Bible and there's always something more to discover. There's always a new verse that touches your heart. You might run across a verse in your own personal Bible study that you want to go back and add to a topic you've already marked. Or you might be sitting in a Bible class or listening to a sermon and you hear a verse that would be good for one of the topics you've marked. So how does that work? Well, first of all, it's freeing to know that in Bible marking, you can always go back and add more verses. It's not as if once you've marked up a topic, it's done. You can always go back and add as many verses as you like, and that's the beautiful thing about it. So how do you know where to go if you want to add another verse? How do you know the last verse that you marked up in any particular topic? Well, obviously, you can start from the beginning and just go through the topic verse by verse until you get to the end of the chain, and then add your extra verses. Now, that takes a little bit of time, but it'll be good for you. If, however, you want to skip that, you do have a couple of options. The first thing you can do is keep a running document somewhere, it could be even in the notes on your phone, of all the topics that you're marking. And just like you do in the front of your Bible where you have your topics listed out and the first verse that you'll go to, in this document or notes, have those topics listed out and the last verse that you marked up. That way, if you ever have another verse that you'd like to add, you can always just look up that topic, see what the last verse is, go straight there, and then add on your extra verse or verses. Another option is if you are marking those topics with me, then I always include the list of scriptures that I use in every video. So anytime you can go back to that video, look in the description box, and find the last verse that you marked up. So those are some of the answers to how do you know where to find the end verse of the topic that you've already marked. Another question that keeps coming up is, what if I don't want them out of order? So a couple of thoughts on that. It may surprise you to know that the Bible you're marking up now probably won't be your forever Bible. And you may have another Bible at some point. Someone will give you one, or you'll just fall in love with another one that you run across. When you go back and start writing again in your Bible and marking up those topics, you can adjust them however you want. You can reorganize or reorder those verses that you've added more verses to. So that's probably not an answer you wanted to hear, but it is an answer. Another option is to use whiteout. If I'm using whiteout in my Bible, I like to use the kind that looks like a tape dispenser, and you just kind of press on it and it pulls a little strip of whiteout onto the page. It seems to handle the thin Bible pages pretty well. You can just use that little strip of whiteout to mark out a verse that you originally had in your topic, add in the new verse that you want to put in its place if you're trying to put them in a certain order, and then go to that new verse, mark it up however you like, and then add back in the previous verse that you had whited out. That way you have sort of inserted an extra verse wherever you wanted it to be. When I'm Bible marking, I typically do try to put them, when I'm doing the initial study, I typically do try to organize them in such a way that they follow the arrangement of the books of the Bible, just for ease and convenience for later study. However, the third thing that I want to mention along these lines is, for most topics, the order doesn't matter. it doesn't really matter where they follow. So if I run across some more verses that I want to add to a topic, I have no problem adding them to the end. The study will still be good even if I'm backtracking. Even if I get to a point where I'm going backwards to look up some more verses that I'm marking, it will still be a great study. So really, in most cases, the order isn't that big of a deal. Okay, I think I've covered all of your questions and what to do about adding extra verses in a chain of Bible verses that you've already marked up. But if I missed something, or if you still have a question, please feel free to drop a comment below. Thank you for being here, and may God bless your Bible study.